Hi, this is Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who've died recently who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. And tonight we're going to start out with our feature, John Mahoney, who died recently at the age of 77. I think it's reasonable to say he is a legendary television character. He played Martin Crane, Frasier Crane's father, on Frasier for 11 years. The Frasier Ensemble is one of the great TV sitcom ensembles in history, and Martin Crane, with his chair and his dog, was an integral part of that. John Mahoney was a Chicago guy through and through. He lived in Oak Park. He used to visit the restaurants there all the time. He was actually born in Manchester, in England during the war. And it's sort of an inside joke that Jane Leigh, who played Daphne, was supposed to be from Manchester. John Mahoney helped her out with that fake Mancunian accent. As I said, John Mahoney went to school here in Illinois and did not start out to be an actor. He's actually one of these guys who started acting when he was in his 30s, and he started at Steppenwolf, where Gary Sinise and John Malkovich befriended him. He was on a lot of great Chicago productions at Steppenwolf in the 70s. He got his big break on Broadway in 1986 when he won a Tony, and from then he progressed to movies and then to television.
When I started out, I started as an actor at 37. I had done a variety of jobs before that. After 3 or 4 plays, I was on Broadway, and I was fortunate enough to win a Tony, and all of a sudden, people didn't offer me Porky's 5.
Here's a brief report on John Mahoney.
John Mahoney has died. The British-born actor was best known for his role as Martin Crane, who he played for 11 seasons on the hit show Frasier.
There's a bowl of potato salad lying out completely uncovered.
It's getting tangy.
He won a SAG award for the part and was nominated for 2 Golden Globes and 2 Emmys over the years. Mahoney got his start in theater, winning a Tony Award for his role in The House of Blue Leaves.
The winner is John Mahoney in The House of Blue Leaves.
I'm just so proud to be a part of this whole proceedings tonight that this wasn't really necessary, but you'll never get it back.
Mahoney also made appearances in films such as 8 Men Out, Barton Fink, and Moonstruck.
And at that moment, she stands up and throws a glass of water in my face. Some action to that effect.
What you don't know about women is a lot.
As I sometimes do, I'll refer to the blog of Ken Levine, who as a creative consultant and writer worked frequently John Mahoney on Frasier. Ken writes, "Boy, this is a tough one. John Mahoney passed away at 77. Probably best known for playing Frasier's dad Martin on Frasier. John was maybe the nicest, most easygoing man on the planet, and what a sensational actor. I had the privilege to both write for him and direct him. The consummate professional, John always knew his lines, was always there for rehearsal, always cheerful, always generous. Off the set, he was quiet, private, and almost shy. You don't hear of many actors referred to as shy, but that was John. You could really get him talking, however, if you brought up football. He was a huge football fan, so it was even more tragic for him to die on Super Bowl Sunday. I first met John on Cheers. David Isaacs and I had an episode where we needed a middle-aged jingle writer, a real Tin Pan Alley guy. We had another actor, but after the dress rehearsal, he just freaked out with such a case of stage fright that he drove off the lot and never returned. Obviously, we couldn't shoot that part that night, but we recast and shot it the following week. John Mahoney was hired to fill that role, and he crushed it. At the time, Peter Casey, David Lee, and David Angel were casting their pilot of Frasier. They saw the Cheers episode with John and thought he might be a good choice to play Martin. The rest is history. Crazy how these things work out sometimes. John was a gentle soul with a twinkle in his eye. He was equally gifted at comedy and drama, and he made it look easy. To me, he was the real key to the success of Frasier. He was the voice of the common man who never let the brothers get too full of themselves, and yet his love for them and theirs for him was evident in every moment of every episode. Everyone in the Frasier family, from the writers to the cast to the Teamsters drivers, loved John. We have a large body of his work both in TV and films to enjoy and appreciate for years to come. John Mahoney was special, one of a kind. No one will ever be able to fill his chair. Well, you heard a little snippet of him in Moonstruck with Olympia Dukakis. In Barton Fink, he was great playing a sort of an F. Scott Fitzgerald William Faulkner character. But my personal favorite movie role of his was when he played Kid Gleason, the manager of the 1919 Black Sox in 8 Men Out. Here he is fielding questions from reporters on the White Sox questionable play in the World Series. Reporters who included, by the way, Studs Terkel playing the reporter Hugh Fullerton, and the director John Sayles playing the legendary Ring Lardner.
I kind of figured I'd stay with my blue chip ball players. You got faith in your fellows to come around?
The Reds only need one more game to take the series. That's do or die for your club.
No sweat.
What makes you so confident, kid?
I think the boys are back on the form. They got one look at Moran's staff now and they'll be swinging free from this point on. I'll tell you, class always comes through in the clinches. Eddie came to me this morning, he says, "Kid," he says, "I can't miss. We got Lefty Williams rolling for us tomorrow. One of the finest pitches I ever seen. It's due for a big game, Lefty."
How do you explain the way your boys laid down in the other games?
What do you mean, laid down?
Well, they didn't seem too enthusiastic about their jobs.
Nobody did any laying down. I've been a little overconfident. Maybe we didn't have the fine edge, but the boys been putting out.
The boys been put out more than they've been putting out.
You really think you can turn this series around, kid? No sweat. The odds are pretty steep. The boys don't care about the odds. Anything can happen in this game. Anything.
We all know what did happen. If I had to pick one scene with John Mahoney and Frasier, it would be in the first season when Frasier tries to get rid of the chair that Martin Crane likes so much, but doesn't fit in with Frasier's apartment decor.
Well, this couldn't have worked out any better for you, could it? You've been trying to get rid of that chair from the day I moved in here.
Dad, you could at least show a little gratitude. I didn't do this for me. I did it for you.
Like hell.
She said, "You're acting like I lost the chair on purpose."
Hey, let me tell you something. That chair was the only thing that made me feel comfortable in this house. That made me feel that maybe this was my home, too.
Oh, baloney. Jeez. Ever since you got here, all I'm trying to do is make you comfortable. I don't even know why I bothered. I mean, everybody knows that Martin Crane doesn't like calf skin. He prefers duct tape. And food crumbs. There we are. Hey, let's have a little dribble of beer while we're at it. Why not? There, that's delightful. Oh, and let's not forget to top it all off, just the slightest bit of dog hair.
I suppose you're going to be throwing Eddie out by the dumpster next.
Dad, I don't know why you're carrying on this way. We are, after all, talking about a 25-year-old broken-down chair. If you don't like this chair, I'll get you another one. Any chair you want.
Really? All right, I'll tell you what chair I want. I want the chair I was sitting in when I watched Neil Armstrong take his first step on the moon. And when the U.S. hockey team beat the Russians in the '80 Olympics. I want the chair I was sitting in the night you called me to tell me I had a grandson. I want the chair I was in all those nights when your mother used to wake me up with a kiss after I'd fallen asleep in front of the television. You know, I still fall asleep in it. And every once in a while, when I wake up, I still expect your mother to be there ready to lead me off to bed. Oh, never mind. It's only a chair. Come on, Eddie.
The audience has a job and the actors have a job. When you both do your job and meet, the result is just magical.
Well, we're going to move on now to a guy who had almost the exact opposite career of John Mahoney, John Gavin, who died recently at the age of 86. John Gavin was born in Southern California. He was born Juan Vincent Apablasa. He was part Mexican and part Chilean, fluent in Spanish and English, and his movies were popular in Latin America. Now, as opposed to John Mahoney, John Gavin started young in acting, and he had almost everything going for him. He was really intelligent, graduated with honors from Stanford. He was 6'4", and he was really chiseled and good looking, great body and everything. The only problem is he wasn't a great actor, and it took a while for everybody to figure that out. He was signed by Universal to be the next Rock Hudson. He even looked a little like Rock Hudson, but he just couldn't act like Rock Hudson, and most of his movie roles he turned out to be just male eye candy. But that's not to say he wasn't in some big movies. He got his first break in the 1959 Lana Turner vehicle, Imitation of Life, where Lana lusts all over his body.
Starring Lana Turner as the great stage star Laura Merritt, the men in her life, John Gavin.
I'm not asking you not to go down there, Laura. I'm telling you.
What makes you think you have that right?
Because I love you, isn't that enough?
No, Steve, I'm sorry.
Now, I presume that Alfred Hitchcock saw that and said, hey, we can make this guy into a star. And he gave John Gavin his most famous role. 1 year later, he was Sam Loomis, the hot guy who Janet Leigh lusts after in Psycho. The movie starts in a hotel room in Phoenix where they're in a state of undress, and Janet Leigh is all over John Gavin. In fact, that's why she steals the money to run away with him. She's in her bra and undies, he's got his shirt off. It's about as sexual as you could get at the time. Problem is, we all know what happened to Janet after she ran off with that money. And a little later in the movie, John Gavin comes with her sister, Vera Miles, to the old Bates Motel, where they meet none other than Norman Bates, a.k.a. Anthony Perkins. And they're looking for Janet Leigh, Little do they know she's already at the bottom of the pond.
We'll walk in there.
We're going to register as man and wife. We're going to get shown to a cabin, and then we're going to search every inch of the place, inside and out.
I wonder where Norman Bates does his hermiting.
Someone's at that window. I just saw the curtain move.
Well, just coming up the ring for you.
Suppose you want to run?
We were going to try to make it straight to San Francisco, but we don't like the look of that sky. Looks like a bad day coming, doesn't it?
I'll take you to cabin 10.
Better sign in first, hadn't we?
No, that's not necessary.
My boss is paying for this trip, and well, it's 90% business. He wants practically notarized receipts. I better sign in and get a receipt.
Thank you. I'll get your bags.
Haven't any.
I'll show you the room, then.
First time I've ever seen it happen. Check in any other place in this country without bags, and you have to pay in advance.
$10.
That receipt.
I'll go on ahead.
Receipt, now I'll show you the cabin. Don't bother yourself. We'll find it.
Hitchcock turned out not to be too crazy about his performance. He called him the Big Stiff. But he managed to get a role in another classic, Spartacus. Bunch of guys with togas on, showing off their chests. And after that, he was pretty much relegated to B movies. In 1964, he moved to television for a short-lived series, Death Street. It was sort of a cross between The Fugitive and Maverick, but it had a great theme song by Randy Sparks and some of the New Christy Minstrels.
Death Street, where will you ride tomorrow? What will your legend say? Will it recall a man on the run, or a place in the sun, or a drifter who passed this way? He was wild as the West, and yet they say a fight was not his game. When trouble came this way, he rode that away. Destry was his name. Destry.
My name's Destry. That little stay I had in Texas State Prison sort of calmed me down and gave me a different slant on life. But I just can't quite get over the fact that I was framed by a fellow named Charlie Bent. And maybe if I keep showing his picture to enough people, someday somebody will recognize him and tell me where he is.
John Gavin had one more shot. In 1971, they wanted him to be James Bond in the movie Diamonds Are Forever, and he actually shot some of the scenes. But they saw that he was no James Bond, and they went back and met Sean Connery's demand for $1 million, and Sean Connery did that movie. Turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to John Gavin because he got out of show business, and a couple years later, when Ronald Reagan was elected president, he was good buds with Ron and Nancy, and they made him the ambassador to Mexico. That's what he really wanted to do, and the rest of his life he did business stuff and political stuff as a liaison to Latin America. Well, I'm going to close on that note. I want to thank my producer and IT genius, Sid Tepps. We're going to close tonight with Oscar Gamble, who died recently at the age of 68, a pretty decent ball player in his day with a Chicago connection. He broke in with the '69 Cubs late in the season when they were busy throwing away the pennant. Leo DeRocher decided he would trade the prospect with Dick Selma for Johnny Carlson because he needed a right fielder. Johnny Carlson had one good season with the Cubs, but that was it. And Oscar Gamble went on to a 17-year major league career as a power-hitting outfielder. Most notably for the Yankees, he played in 2 World Series with the Yankees, although his best single season was again in Chicago. He was part of the 1977 Southside Hitmen. That's the White Sox team that went from last place to almost winning the pennant in 1977 before they collapsed for lack of pitching. But they hit a lot of home runs with guys like Richie Zisk, Wayne Nordhagen, and Eric Soderholm, and in fact, Oscar Gamble led the team with 31 home runs. But that's not why we're closing with him. Oscar Gamble is a legend for another reason. He had the bitchinest afro in Major League history, maybe in all sports history. In baseball, his 70s afro was superior to that of Doc Ellis or Dave Parker, and I would put it in competition with Dr. J's and Darnell Hillman's in basketball. And in fact, in Oscar Gamble's case, it wasn't any kind of political statement. It was just a fashion statement. He was just a cool guy. His 1976 Yankees Topps baseball card is a classic, showing that afro sticking out of his Yankee hat, which is sort of ironic because he didn't get to play with the Yankees with that afro. They're sort of a tight-assed organization. They made him shave it. But to honor Oscar Gamble, what else can we play as the closing song but the legendary Cowsill song from 1969, Hair. Please,